Hey, everybody, before we get started, I'd like to remind y'all that this Saturday, April 26th, we got Last Podcast on the Left live at the Creek in the Cave, 1093 Jackson Avenue in Long Island City, Queens. Go to creeklic.com for more details. Maybe we'll see you there.
There's no place to escape to.
This is the Last Podcast.
On the left. That's when the cannibalism started.
What was that?
That sounds good.
That sounds good.
That's perfect right there.
Feels good.
That feels good.
Feels good. Sex.
Reunited and it's
Feels so good.
Oh, yeah, feels so good. All right, we're gonna go. Good to go. All right, hey everyone, and that's Marcus Parks. I'm Ben Kissel. Back in the studio with us, we have a fella. Who is he?
I happened to, I got back into town.
Yeah.
I'm a little hungover.
Right.
So let's just say, call him Henry Zabrowski, but don't call him late for dinner, Henry
That's right.
Zabrowski.
He's early.
That's the character.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a very real to life character today. That's good. Henry,
It feels so good to be back in the studio.
we have a lot of controversy though, and I know you can't say much. Peanut butter gates, it's really been heating up the Facebook page.
I cannot express the actual details of said peanut butter gate, but let's just say I had a run-in with peanut butter.
You had a run-in with it.
Yes, that's the reason why we didn't have an episode.
There was a
last
run-in
week.
with peanut butter.
Okay.
That could not be avoided. You would be surprised what peanut butter does.
Yeah, what does
and
it
the
do?
properties of peanut butter are interesting.
Okay,
because it's a fatty. It's like mayonnaise, but for children. I
Right.
consider mayonnaise for adults.
Sure.
Right,
yes.
mayonnaise is an adult condiment. You
Yes.
have to be an adult to understand it. Peanut butter is for a child. All right, it's a good source of protein.
That's right. Yeah. growing
That's
kids.
another fact I can say about peanut butter.
Yeah.
And I can say it takes 7 pounds to cover me in it.
7 pounds. Well, that's not bad.
So there was a run-in with peanut butter.
Well, you look great because I tell you.
You should also, and the only other, I will say, peanut butter certainly clogs up a shower drain. That's awesome.
right?
And it's really fun when the look on a maid's face
Right.
when you walk home and she's walking out of a hotel room and literally, because it's like a room full of peanut butter chunks all up in the shower.
Right.
I may have left a Duke in the toilet, reeking of weed in there, beer bottles, and a scotch bottle just like all over
Everywhere.
the place.
Yeah.
And the grease stains everywhere.
And not a woman to be found.
No.
Not a woman.
No. It's very hard to say, hey, when you're going to come back to my place, that it looks like a senator's orgy, as if it was a part of some gigantic cover-up.
That's right. That's right. Of course, we're on part 3 of
Welcome
the,
back.
Satanism in government. But Henry, of course, we've had a lot of negative words and a lot of negativity towards
I wanna just
Satanism.
stop
And
there.
you want to clear the Satanist name.
I just want to say it again. Let's all remember why we're Satanists. Because it's fun. Because
Sure.
the girls are beautiful.
They are.
And the men are powerful. All
Well-
right? That's what,
The women are powerful and beautiful, and the men are us.
the men are us.
Yeah, so
and
we're
we
like-
get to, and this allows us to hang out with powerful, beautiful women.
That's right.
Yes, and all commiserate. And the satin is just great for the legs. Satin feels so nice when it's just swishing back and forth between your legs, around your balls. You know what I mean? So the robes are great. Black goatees are coming back. But I want to say, let's all remember.
I feel like you're sort of the reason that the vast majority of mentally stunted people became hippies in the 60s
Yes.
for the fashion.
For the fashion.
You just sort of like the fashion of Satanism, not the tenets of
But
Satanism.
that's what true Satanism is. Satanism is about symbols and filling them
Yeah.
with energy and power and enjoying yourself, and you're fighting for your right to be by yourself.
Sure.
Which is wonderful.
Yeah.
So let's give everyone a taste to remember of what makes Satanism fun.
Yeah, let's hear it.
Hit it, Anton.
Immediately think of a monkey, huh?
This is Anton LaVey playing the Calliope.
Big old
He
smile
is
on his
good.
evil face.
God, it's terrifying.
I know, it is still scary.
Yes.
But that's the best part.
Come into the party, won't you? No.
Could we at least maybe turn down the volume of the calliope so we can speak with each other?
They are really loud.
No, there's just some girl just like moving her pec muscles back and forth through her, making her boobies bounce. To this
That would be fun.
That would be fun.
Is
a
there any
monkey, a dolphin with a fucking weed shoved in his hole, and you can spark the top of it and then French kiss it and suck all the weed smoke out of its head.
Yeah,
that'd be amazing.
Definitely. Is there any other sound that this instrument can make?
No.
That's it.
That's it. That's
the
just-
only one.
All it can do is circus drone and phantom music.
Yeah.
That's the only thing a calliope can make.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just beneath the ukulele. that's an interesting one.
Oh, that's bullshit. I hate the ukulele.
Yeah, it's the worst.
The ukulele has got nowhere near the power of a calliope. At least a calliope can fill a circus with noise.
Yeah, calliope is
That's true.
ear splitting.
Yeah, that's true. All
I'm in
right.
so much pain.
We got to get to part 3 here, guys.
So let's jump into this. So just again, turn on the lights to your hotel room. Put on an old stinky robe and start getting out the strings to connect dots on a map somewhere inside your home right now.
Yeah.
Get that glass of bourbon going. Let's dive into this heap of shit.
Yeah.
Don't do any of that. Stay with your wife.
Do you know how close I came to making a diagram on the wall?
No, I know.
Like really close.
You made a 9-page outline. That's
I made 4 9-page outlines.
Yeah.
And the first one was 25 pages.
you. God bless your girlfriend.
That's right. She's a real sweetheart. Putting up with all that.
So we left off last episode with the satanic abuses of Loretta Smith, possibly the most disturbing interviews that we heard so far.
They had a
of
bunch
course.
of little boy tartar, and it was really, it's really hard when you make a baby smoothie because, the protein's great.
Well, sure. Yeah, it's on par with peanut butter.
Yeah.
So it's at this point that a man named John DeCamp comes onto the scene.
Okay.
If there's a hero in this story, he's it.
John
All
DeCamp
right, he's our
and
guy.
Gary Caradori. This John DeCamp is a true, this is where I feel like we can inject some hope into this story,
Yeah,
where
just a
people
little
came
bit.
forward to fight for these kids, and John DeCamp was one of them.
Yeah, John DeCamp is a saint.
Yes.
I mean, this guy was one of the most decorated Vietnam vets that there were. He initiated Operation Baby Lift, which evacuated 2,800 orphan Vietnamese children.
That's beautiful.
Yeah,
That sounds
that's
great.
beautiful. And not only this guy is
You should use Operation Baby Lift to take babies from women who don't want them anymore.
Sure,
So they can go
yeah.
back to being single and fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this guy, he is not a crackpot. This is not your standard satanic panic bullshit artist. This guy, in fact, he's a lawyer for the National Child Abuse Defense and Resource Center in Nebraska, which fights against false accusations of child abuse, and it's made up of adults who have been falsely accused of child abuse.
So, which is an interesting kind of backwards way to fight for justice, where it's like, it's technically, so it's almost, it shows how honest he is that he fights for adults' rights and sex and children's sex scandals.
Right.
Yeah, this guy, I mean, his only interest is justice. And that's what I love about this guy.
Real law and order guy.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely,
Very
must have been
much a
real
moral
boring at a party. Really boring at a party. This is a problem. It's like I've now alienated several groups of people with talking about this subject.
Right.
And you know that this is all this dude talks about. Maybe he talks about like the Texas Rangers. Like maybe he's into something like
He's
some
got to
baseball
have a
team.
go-to. You have to have a plan B if you start talking about child sexual predator rings, and then you're like, their faces want to talk about baseball. Good thing I know who Nolan Ryan was.
He's like, hey, John, great man, wonderful man. Not much with the small talk.
No, really just kind of dives right in there with the children and then this physical sexual abuse. But I'll tell you, John DeCamp, when he dies, so does the last Steven Seagal fan. This man must love Steven Seagal. I feel like the law and order justice guy, Vietnam vet.
Yeah.
That's the recipe, right?
Oh, absolutely. He first became involved in the case when it was found that $40 million were missing from the Nebraska Federal Credit Union.
Because again, you can't get the government to do fuck all until money is involved.
That's right.
It's the same, Capone, all these people that were caught on tax evasion. It's all like as soon as they're not getting their fucking cut, the government's like, "Rrr, rrr." but otherwise they don't care how many little kids are turned into a fucking Jamba Juice special.
Yeah, and I don't know how special that is. But
I mean, it's off the menu.
yeah.
It's like animal style at In-N-Out. You can't always get the baby smoothie.
Yeah. Well,
Enough with the baby smooth. I don't want to hear it
It's
anymore.
It's an interesting detail.
It's just a tough visual that I don't even. Maybe you've got to roll a big straw, something like that. Like I don't know how you.
It's just a problem when you have a baby and you name it ceviche. Don't
Yeah.
name it ceviche.
That's true. That's a good point.
Of course, $40 million went missing, and the FBI raided the Federal Credit Union. And of course, their whole aim with this is that they knew that there was a lot of bad shit in that credit union. There was a lot of bad stuff surrounding Larry King.
It was because they knew that he was living way beyond his means. He was living this crazy fucking lifestyle.
Yeah.
Money was going missing.
Yeah. A lot of money had gone missing. So the FBI went in there, and their aim was to just erase it. Just to get rid of everything, every bit of evidence that this credit union existed. That's what they wanted
Just
to do.
firebomb the whole thing.
Firebomb the whole thing. However, John DeCamp got wind of this, and as he started to investigate it more and more, the more he kind of started to see there were some odd things here and there. A lot of stuff didn't add up.
Well, because he
about it.
started going into the children welfare services, like the reports that were being filed with them. He started reading it and just seeing again and again, like Larry King, because he like it's the same thing happened. What we find out later is that he was tracking Sandusky for years and years.
Yeah. This guy he mentioned in the book that he wrote. This is
the book that we base all our research on. He wrote this book, which was called
The Franklin Cover-Up.
Yes.
All of these episodes were based on the Franklin Cover-Up, and he mentions the Sandusky thing. He offhandedly mentions it at one point
because that was before he was arrested for it. Sandusky, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he wrote that in 1990.
Yeah.
And this is how much information this guy has. Just offhanded. Just like second thought, like eighth thought is just like, and Sandusky. Yeah,
he's
he has
one
a
to look
child
out for,
pedophile
too.
ring with football and stuff like that.
Yeah. He's got a whole collection of those sweet rings, those candy rings at the back of it. He says everyone comes over and they play the Pope game.
This is why you can't commit suicide, though, when everybody doubts you. DeCamp, his entire life was probably considered a schmuck by so many people, and then all of them start to fall. And he's just like, that awkward dinner conversation, I was right. Yeah. I don't care. I don't care that I ruined the wedding.
Yeah.
I was still right. So that's fine with me.
Well, and then we see again what's happened with these accusations with Bryan Singer and this weird, gigantic Hollywood pedophile cabal that may or may not exist.
I've been hearing about this pedophile cabal for years.
Because at page 7, it's really interesting just when you're in the celebrity gossip angle, like you're actually picking up, which may actually be the fringes of some gigantic government secret keeping cabal. Mm-hmm. And then also Kiefer Sutherland drinks too much.
Yep, that's true. That's true. But now you, what's this? Are you going to go see the new X-Men movie with this Bryan Singer guy as the director?
I wasn't going to do it anyway. I hate comic book movies. Comic book movies suck.
Very good.
Captain America was wonderful.
Yeah.
So, now that John DeCamp is starting to gather more information, he, despite having opposition from the local law enforcement, the FBI, and the Omaha World Herald, he forms the Franklin Committee out of the Nebraska state legislature.
Now, this was an official government, what's the term? What's the term?
Organization?
Committee.
Legislative committee.
Think tank, right? But I mean, we've seen a lot of other official committees, like the Warren Committee, and what do? They put out a fucking binders of hogwash.
Hogwash?
Hogwash.
It's hogwash. Get him out of here, would you?
So this is when they hire a chief investigator. The chief investigator that they hire is a man named Gary Caradori.
I love this guy.
I love Gary Caradori so much. But before we really get into Caradori, we got to talk about the witness that Caradori found that ended up being one of the only two witnesses that were to testify in the grand jury trial to come, a girl named Alicia Owen.
Now, they believe that because she was a hard person to bring in, too. She fought it because
Terrified.
Because her and Paul Benacki were in contact for a long time, and Paul Benacki kept saying, like, you gotta come forward, and she's like, no, and then finally she ranks her for the Franklin Committee.
Yeah, I mean, her testimony, like, she details abuse that goes back as far as 1983.
I mean, and going back to the child pedophile ring, these Hollywood, they have an opportunity to not have an acting career, which you could argue is a luxurious thing to have in the first place.
An acting career is the silliest career of all time.
That's right. So it's not really, okay, I'm sorry. I would say I'm not going to suck your penis, and I will say I'm fine with not having an acting career
I don't need to be in Boardwalk Empire.
It will be okay for me. But this woman is going against a huge, very dangerous organization, a mafia-style bunch of folks who are threatening her life on a regular basis.
And then meanwhile, a lot of time these people's their reputation is so thoroughly smeared by the end of their lives are trashed.
Yeah.
So like, of course, they're viewed as crazy. They're discredited for the rest of their life. No one believes the word out of the mouth for the rest of their life.
Yeah. And this girl, she wasn't homeless. She wasn't a drug addict. She came from a nice family. She was never abused. She was just kind of a wild child. At the age of 14, she hooked up with a bad crowd.
But this is where the victim blaming comes in too, and this is exactly who they preyed upon a lot of these times. Is these kids that were kind of lost looking for somebody, and they were partiers. And so now, like, that's the needle that the government can use every time, and basically being like, well, wasn't she looking for it?
Yeah.
And it's like, she's 14. She doesn't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. I did a lot of dumb shit when I was 14. I used to slick my hair back. You know what I mean? I used to slick my hair all the way back and call myself the Flying Grape. I had to have a thing. You have to have a thing.
You do have to have a thing. Yeah.
So she started going to Larry King's parties at 14. And of course, her testimony is just as awful as every other bit of testimony that we've had here. But she does implicate a very important person in her testimony. She implicates Omaha Police Chief Robert Wadman.
Officer Wadman.
Wadman. And by the way, Robert Wadman, very close friend of Nick O'Hara, the regional head of the FBI. Alicia Owen claims that Robert Wadman raped and impregnated her and shoved the barrel of his gun up her vagina. Now, if you'll remember from our last
and that's
episode,
not normal protocol.
That's bad.
Yeah.
No.
For a 14-year-old girl.
Yeah.
And so, if you'll remember from the last episode, Robert Wadman was the guy that walked down to the offices of the Omaha Police Department and told investigators to immediately stop investigating Larry King.
Of course, because he was right on the list.
Yeah.
He was right on the list. And now, those are the other thing. I got into a very detailed conversation in which I alienated a group of people last night. And I was saying this too, is that I think a lot of times, especially in these like after parties, we were saying the same thing about like, I think there's not everybody fuck the kids, but people were asked to stick around. Yeah. And, and people like Nick O'Hara and stuff like that was probably like a dude that was just forced to sit there and watch it and just be like, and what did you see? Nothing. Like, oh no, mom. Did you see me do it? Did you see me do it?
Yeah.
And then like, no, because they create the gigantic secret cabal.
Yeah. Not a lot of courage with these fellas.
No.
So based on the initial interviews with Owen, Gary Caradori, the chief investigator, he recommended...
What I love about this, he's a private eye too, right?
Yeah,
like this is a guy, I love this guy because he's a fucking civilian. It's like, I literally want to play this guy in a movie one day. I'm just like, the guy he left it all on the line. He signed up for this project. He has, like, I was reading a thing about him saying the same thing where he was like, he did it, it's the classic, like he did it for the money.
Yeah.
And then he was just like, my God, this thing goes back forever. And then like got like jumped into it head first.
Well, I think in about 10 years you could just make a reality show of it. That's going to be your life. Henry Zabrowski, Private Eye. I could see it.
So Gary Caradori, based on this initial interview, he subpoenaed 62 people. 62 people that Alicia Owen was able to name that she said were a part of this ring or were victims of the ring.
Yeah.
One of the two. So Gary Caradori, he starts investigating these people. He starts investigating, what was his name? Rusty?
Yeah,
Rusty Nelson?
Yeah, Rusty Nelson. Yeah, he
Again.
starts investigating Rusty Nelson, who you'll remember from our last episode was Larry King's private photographer. He tracked him all the way to Chicago. He flew his private plane there, and he took his 8-year-old son along with him. Who knows why? They decided to go to a Cubs game. He figured, if I'm going to go look for child pornography, might as well bring my son along.
I don't understand why. But I mean, he's a private detective. He's got his own motives.
I mean, yeah, they got to get in a plane and go. Yeah.
I mean, and before this, he had gone through a lot of harassment. His house was broken into in 1989. A telephone repairman told him that his phones were tapped.
Oh, no, this guy, he was run through the ringer over and over again. Yeah. And so this was leading up to, this was because they could not get an official investigation, right? Because like up until this point, like the Franklin Committee, that was technically the most official it got, but no criminal charges were ever really put upon Larry King or anything, like, right?
No, nothing was filed. We'll get to the grand jury investigation.
This was all leading up to the grand jury.
This is all leading up to the grand jury, of course.
So he's in a plane with his son. They're having a good time talking about, look how high we are up in the sky, son.
Brum,
Son's
brum,
crying.
brum.
Yeah.
And she's like, Daddy,
Is it true that sometimes a plane can just blow up out of the sky?
No, that's never happened. Not in the history of planes. And another father lies to his son.
Yep, his plane blew up in midair on its way back from Chicago.
And this is also when because he had just made a phone call too, saying like, "We got him.
Yeah.
They can't get away from this one." He had some pile of documents.
Yeah, he called Nebraska State Senator Lauren Schmidt, and he said she was the head of the Franklin Committee. John DeCamp was just a part of it. She was the head of the Franklin Committee, and he said, "We've got them. There's no way they can get out of it now."
So he did make contact with Mr. Rusty Nelson.
Yeah.
Which, again,
Yeah.
did we mention that sounds like a terrible sexual position?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. No, Rusty Nelson doesn't even need to be.
Never give a
mentioned.
woman a Rusty Nelson.
Never name your son Rusty.
No,
Because all he's
definitely
going to
not.
be is a private photographer. And if you're a private photographer, God knows.
I feel like it involves like a period, but then it's all just like crusted over, and then you're just, oh, give me that Rusty Nelson.
Give it out, Rusty.
Yeah.
I just imagine it's just like rubbing a bunch of nails in between your hands and fingering somebody.
Yeah, real construction worker sex. Either
So
way.
Caradori, he even speaks like a private eye. Before he got on the plane, like he told his wife, "If even half of what I've heard is true, this is the biggest thing that ever hit Nebraska."
It's between that and corn.
Gary, you never pick out the garbage, Gary. You never take out the milk.
It would be definitely the biggest thing that's ever hit Nebraska, though.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
No doubt about that.
So the explosion, a farmer saw the plane explode in midair.
Okay.
But farmers, they're already afraid of planes.
Oh, they're
They see every
terrified.
time they see a plane, they're just like, that bud needs to be put in a cage. Because
Yeah.
they don't understand.
Space gods.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so the plane goes down, and initial news reports, they quote this farmer. They say that, yes, farmer saw a flash in the sky. He heard an explosion. He saw a plane go down.
TWA 800. Gonna throw that in there as well.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, it's pretty much the same thing.
Yeah.
Has there ever been a reliable farmer? Has anybody ever taken the farmer's word?
No, because how many times a farmer been like, "Oh, you're going up to old McKeever's cabin, huh? Well, I wouldn't be going on up there."
Because
he's
McKeever's
always-
black and he just
Yeah.
hates blacks. No, it's a racial thing.
No,
ghosts
they're
or
always
anything.
warning people to not go to the haunted cabin.
They live terrified lives. That's what these isolated farmers do.
What are you talking about? They're with corn. There's nothing scary about growing corn.
They're
The
scared-
government's paying them not to do anything.
Yeah, that's true.
You don't know until you've been out there alone, Henry.
Scary stuff.
Once you've been out there alone, then you come talk to me. You tell me how it's unscary it is.
So the plane pops in midair. This
Pops in
farmer's
midair.
like, well, I never saw that before.
And so he reports it to the police. He reports it to local newscasters. But on subsequent reports, all of the newscasters say that the plane exploded when it hit the ground.
Sure.
Okay.
And
So what's the difference there? If it explodes in midair or if it hits the ground?
if it explodes in midair,
Something
then,
exploded it. And there was either some kind of problems with the engine or there was a surface to air missile that took it down.
or there was just a bomb planted on board, or anything like that. If it just explodes on the ground, then that just goes towards mechanical failure.
Yeah. Okay.
Like something fucked up. But when deputy sheriffs first arrived on the scene, they reported that there was child pornography pictures.
There's a story of that they said they
Yeah.
had slittered all over the thing, like all these naked kid pictures everywhere. And then some FBI guy literally showed up, was like, "I'll be taking these," and like put them all in a garbage can and
Yeah.
left.
Yeah, 3 flatbed trucks, they say.
Jesus.
3
And just-
flatbed
and just
bed
had-
trucks.
Well, they took all of the wreckage as well.
Oh yeah, because again, it was like, why is the federal government coming here to pick up an airplane? Kind of like what happened with TW 800. Why did the government show up? They don't show up to pick up fucking wreckage of a private plane crash. Like,
I'll tell you, MIB, Men in Black, more like Men in Boys. Am I right? Heller.
Yeah, that was a pretty good one.
yeah,
Thank
it is.
you.
But
Thank
Men
you.
in Boys does sound like a forum somewhere on the tour.
Oh, I'm sure that it is. I'm sure that it is.
Yeah, that's an offshoot of NAMBLA right there.
It's a much better story, though, than finding aliens, that may or may not be running pawn shops. Finding people who have sex with kids. Like, that's what these people should be doing.
Yeah, it would be hard to get the PG-13 rating on that film.
Yeah, that's true.
Will
Will Smith
need
might
for a
not.
summer block
Yeah.
spot.
Yeah.
So adding insult to injury here, they never notified Caradori's wife of his death.
Yeah.
She only heard about it when friends heard the news on the radio and they called her. The day after Caradori was killed, the FBI descended on his office, subpoenaed all of his records, took everything that they had, and this is when John DeCamp finally writes the infamous DeCamp memo.
What's
Yes.
the official cause of death?
Official cause of death.
Plane blow up.
Plane.
But was it murder or was it just mechanical failure?
Mechanical failure.
That's what they said. it was.
They just ruled it as an accident.
Okay.
Yeah. And so the DeCamp memo was what blew the lid off of the entire investigation. This was when John DeCamp came out and said this fucked up stuff is happening. There's these child pedophile rings. Larry King is involved in it. Robert Wadman's involved
Which
in it.
I'm sure takes so much strength to do because you're open for any attack.
And you know they've already killed somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know
And
that.
again, Gary Caradori is the perfect example of why it's very hard to be a hero in this country. I mean, or anywhere in the world. Why it's very difficult to be somebody who sticks his neck out for somebody because most of the time you get murdered.
Yeah. Yeah, and you get murdered and no one goes down for it.
Nobody goes down for it.
No.
True Detective. Again, it's the same. True Detective. It's real. It's real.
Yeah, it's real. It's absolutely real.
Yeah.
So this, of course, the DeCamp memo goes out, and immediately every one of the victims, every one of the people who are making these accusations, and John DeCamp himself, they're immediately attacked by the Omaha World Herald.
Which is just like again, it's this weird thing of look at another industry that is tied into this cover up, like you get entertainment, sports with Sandusky, the fucking media. It's nuts.
all the same thing. Yeah. The media has been a mouthpiece for on a macro scale. It's a CNN and Fox are all mouthpieces for the federal government, and this is just a local version of it that just so happens to also have a fucking the federal government still has its hand fucking elbows deep up its ass. I was just talking to a friend about this. Yeah, remember Syria when we were going to go in there and the war's gotten worse, but they don't talk about it anymore because they don't want to trumpet up the beats of war any longer. They don't want to convince us that we want to do it, so they just stop talking about it.
They stop talking about it.
All
so
they
it feels like
do.
it all goes away.
Yeah, but it's gotten worse.
Yep.
Yeah, the publisher of the Omaha World Herald, Harold Anderson, was a big supporter.
Hello, my name is Harold Anderson. That is my real name, Harold Jean Pater Anderson.
Jean Pater. Interesting.
He was a big supporter of Larry King. He raised money for the Franklin Credit Union. One of their columnists, Peter Citron, he had been arrested for pedophilia many times.
Oh, good.
It just seems like that's
One time.
The thing.
You got arrested one time for pedophilia.
Because it was like we saw the same thing with John Wayne Gacy.
Yeah.
He got arrested one time. Oh, he was just diddling.
Boys being
Oh,
boys.
they're just having a good time. Oh,
Yeah.
it's a stag party. Mm-hmm. Oh, there's no rules at a stag party.
There used to be just no rule places.
Yeah.
Yep.
But at this point, King has been busted now, right? With the credit union scandal, all these financial problems.
he
So
got
how
brought
did they
into
even have the audacity to still throw support behind him just on those grounds alone?
Because he was a stand-up man who just had big appetites.
Yeah. So yeah, he presided over the Franklin Credit Union for 18 years. 18 years Larry King had control over this. And the newspaper the entire time, they knew Larry King. They knew him personally. They never once reported on anything that he had, just this fucking extravagant lifestyle. You know how much money he made on the books officially?
It was $25,000?
$17,000.
That's insane.
That's poverty line.
Yeah, $17,000. I mean, which I guess in like 1980s money is probably about $25,000.
Nothing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean it's more than what we make, but
Everyone makes
bring
more
up
than we
reality.
Yeah,
Don't
don't bring
bring
that
up
up.
reality.
Jesus, Marcus, what's wrong with you? Good. I just stopped thinking about it.
so if you want to go even further into this shit, the Omaha World Herald, they are the co-owner of Election Software and Systems.
Okay.
And in 2003, Electronic Software and Systems claimed that in the past decade alone, it had installed more than 260,000 voting systems, more than 15,000 electronic poll books, and provided services to more than 50,000 elections.
And then
across the country.
that new study that just came out that showed that America is way more of an oligarchy than a democracy. And you just watch these controls being put into place by the
Constantly.
same people who cover up it's the same thing. We're trapped in it.
Yeah.
We're trapped in it. They run our lives. We
If you
can't
look
get
at
out of it.
We've had two families in the White House for pretty much the past 25 years. Going back to 80, we had Bush 3 years in a row, then Clinton, and now, of course, Bush again. And then we had Hillary in there, and now, of course, Hillary's the front runner again. I mean, it's the same people. The idea that we have choice
And I
is
liked
a total
Barack
myth.
Obama, but you know that he went to one of these fucking parties.
Yeah.
Oh,
and
yeah.
And the same thing, the Bilderberg Group and all that
I mean, he
stuff.
might not have gone into room C.
No.
But he was
He was
6
in room
inches of
B.
plaster away.
Yeah, he was in room B, and they heard the noises, and they're all like, "Oh, don't worry about it. They're playing the charity game of Twister in there."
Yeah.
Yeah.
And despite the Omaha World Herald coming against him, despite the Omaha Police Department, the Nebraska State Police, the FBI, the local and state judiciary, all of these people are telling him, don't do this, you cannot do this. He still finally manages, along with the State Foster Care Review Board, who had been investigating this for 2 years before.
Because they were fighting it, because they said the same thing. They'd bring the evidence to the FBI, and they were like, no, they're crazy. I still love that I don't love it, but that thing of just being like, oh no, these kids are raped. You can't believe it.
Yeah, I mean, that's the vicious cycle of it. You can't believe anything they say. But, I mean, growing up in the foster care system, when I was 12, we started doing it in my family, taking in foster brothers and sisters. They are so stupid. They're all so flawed. Anyone who's in the foster care system, not the kids, but the people who run it, are literally on par with someone who works at like, you know, a driver's license.
It feels like it's like a DMV.
Yeah, it's
it's the same thing. Like, you know, how many times I've dealt with our city government? I went into the city hall, and it just feels like, you know, there's no care. They don't care. I understand. I understand that that industry, the foster care industry, is incredibly difficult. But it is all you get is horror stories. I understand that there's no pleasant day at work when you're working for foster care. Very little.
Very, very few.
And so I understand how that can deaden a person. But it just comes down to a point where it's just like, these kids aren't fucking units to be moved. These are humans. Like, and all you're doing is perpetuating a cycle of pain and misery that just makes more miserable adults, that makes more pedophiles, that makes more killers, that makes more jaded people, that make a gigantic fucking gray fucking gear machine that is our country.
And just as they do with prisoners, they give them a number, just as we did with the Jews and anyone who's, like, you know, put into slavery.
Your grandfather
dehumanizing. Did. No, my grandfather never did that. He wasn't on number duty. But it just dehumanizes them, and unfortunately, these kids who are abused get that exact same treatment, even though they've done nothing wrong.
They've done nothing wrong.
So the grand jury starts. The grand jury begins, and they're trying to get depositions from 83 people. 83 witnesses are supposed to give depositions. Witnesses and people who are,
Now, what is it? What exactly is the grand jury system? So what it is? It's like they file a petition to get a court hearing, and that's what it is.
A grand jury. Well, Ben, you've searched on grand juries.
Are just there tends to be 22, 23 people. 12 of them have to agree to send the case to trial. So it's just the prosecution that comes in and makes the government's case or the state's case against the person who's on the defense. That's why it's the people versus. The people of Nebraska versus.
So it was like the people versus the Franklin Committee in this case, John DeCamp.
Or the people versus the Franklin Credit Union.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Larry King, and also Larry King and other.
Okay, I just needed that explained to me.
Yeah.
Because
the whole thing is innately flawed because odds are 12 out of any 22 people are going to be able to side. The whole thing is completely. It's pretty much
it's rigged from the beginning.
It's just a small speed bump to get people into trial.
Yeah.
However, this proved to be much larger than a speed bump. This was an absolute nightmare because out of those 84 people, after they got through 4 depositions, the next 79 witnesses said, "There's no fucking way I'm doing this."
No, of course not, because they watched what happened to the first 4 witnesses, which is they were publicly embarrassed.
Well, two of the first 4, they were killed.
Yep.
That's the most embarrassing thing that can happen in public.
It's crazy embarrassing.
Yeah.
And you're asking yourself, of course, and the only people that were really left at the end of it to really give their witness testimony were Alicia Owen and Paul Benaki. Alicia Owen, we mentioned earlier. Paul Benaki, we spent the lion's share of the last episode talking about his testimony.
So the pressure on these two are just, this is insane.
Nuts.
Yeah, it's insane. And you ask yourself, where is Larry King in all of this? Of course, Larry King was indicted because of the embezzlement of the federal credit of the Franklin Credit Union. $40 million had gone missing. Of course, where is Larry King and all this? They whisked him away to Minnesota to a mental health facility.
Now, why did
for
they
a psychiatric evaluation?
No, this was just because this was to lead up to whether or not he was crazy to which is ludicrous, before he took the stand at the grand jury.
He never took the stand at the grand jury.
No, of course, because they kept him in the sanitarium and said it's like, oh, well, he kind of went cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs.
Well, here's what the grand jury actually said, because they never even called Larry King as a witness. They never even tried. Here's what they said. Because King is presently in an institution out of state pursuant to an order from the federal court, and because we believed he would rely on his right against self-incrimination, we decided it would not be fruitful to attempt to require King to appear before us.
Which is insane. Christ. Attempt it. Go out there. Just give it a shot.
Try it. See if somebody can fucking wiggle their way around to get him to answer some sort of question.
How is this man the most powerful manager of a credit union I've ever heard of?
Yeah, it just doesn't make
did he
any
do?
sense.
I got to meet him. I have to know, is he really that charming?
No, it's what we said. It's his fucking. He's got all the pictures. He's got fucking Rusty Nelson clicking away with his fucking iPhone. You got fucking, and he's got a bunch of people's semen in a vial.
No, and that's true. And like we were talking about, hell, we could just mention Skull and Crossbones. What they do inside of these ceremonies.
You find all the most embarrassing sexual secrets of somebody's life, and then you hold on to him forever.
That knowledge is power, and when it comes to politics, it's all about that
everything.
power.
It's about leverage.
Yeah.
So on July 23rd, 1990, after hearing hours and hours of testimony from Paul Benaki and Alicia Owen, the county grand jury not only threw out all of the allegations concerning sexual child abuse, they admitted that abuse had happened, but said that the Franklin Credit Union had nothing to do with it. Not only did they throw out all of the allegations, but they charged both Alicia Owen and Paul Benaki with perjury,
with jail time.
Which we had Jim Polk on Abel Against Top Hat, of course the lawyer who's often on New York City Crime Report. Perjury is extremely undercharged. It's never charged.
It's never charged.
Yeah.
No, they did it because they believed that it was what was the one thing, that it was a jealous former employee of Boys Town, and that Alicia Owen and Paul Benaki had gotten together and devised this whole story, and it's just like
somebody liked Penn State's football team and Sandusky was involved, and they wanted to fucking bet on the Rose Bowl.
Yeah, the grand jury said that it was a carefully crafted hoax scripted by a person or persons with considerable knowledge of the people and institutions of Omaha.
Yeah, it's a really fun D&D game. This whole thing. It's great. It's a great story to tell. I'd love to go to court for fucking months and make this whole story. Yeah, that sounds great. That's exactly what I want to do on my fucking Saturday.
Go through some metal detectors.
That sounds wonderful.
Yeah, what would be, I mean, let's say it is a hoax. What is the possible benefit? What would be the possible benefit for these people from testifying?
Never underestimate the power of getting attention. That's the one thing. It's like,
but no one wants to get attention for being a victim of a huge pedophile ring.
Some people do.
Some people are really fucked.
Want attention for anything. They say that's why a lot of false rape accusations happen. It's either wanting attention or trying to get revenge.
Or you're around Ben Roethlisberger.
Yeah, and he's got dollars hanging out of his fucking pockets. And he'll just pay you at the bar.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. But no, but it just seems like, I mean, who knows? According to judges, like in stuff like this, they believe them to be lying, but it just seems so fucking nuts that they would be
intense.
lying.
Yeah. So they got charged with perjury.
Yeah, they got charged with perjury, and King was charged in this grand jury trial. He was charged with embezzlement. A few of the other officers in the credit union were charged with embezzlement. Let me give you King's sentence first.
Oh, okay.
King's sentence, he was given 9 years in prison.
Okay.
That's hard.
Alicia Owen, who was charged with 8 counts of perjury, was sentenced to 21 years.
21 years.
21 years.
That's just ridiculous. And then she came out. What did she ever make statements as to did she ever admit? Did she say that she was lying?
No, never once. She did 4.5 years in prison.
So how do they even prove that she was lying?
All the
evidence is supporting her claims.
The eyewitnesses disappeared. They had nothing to back it up. They only have their word against powerful people's words. Mm-hmm. You don't have the main perpetrator on the stand. What are you going to do? It just comes down to it's just this girl who, as far as you're concerned, is just a former drug addict who's lying to get some kind of settlement so that she can get back on the horse.
It reminds me of what we talked about on Top Hat also when it comes to votes. Or does your vote matter? Or does your opinion matter? If you're lower rung on the social scale, it just doesn't matter nearly as much.
Yeah. She was sentenced to serve 9 to 27 years in prison for telling a grand jury she was sexually abused. This is fucking heartbreaking. This is an excerpt from the Franklin cover-up. This is DeCamp sitting in the judge's chambers right before Alicia's sentencing. It says, I do not understand it, Your Honor, I kept repeating. As God is my witness, I do not think that there is a judge or other person involved in this case who does not know that horrible injustice has been done. Everybody knows that Alicia Owen is telling the truth and that she is being punished for it. And Your Honor, a person has to be blind or totally dishonest not to know that some of this state's and nation's top businessmen and public officials have engaged in the worst crimes possible, which are now being covered up. And these kids, instead of being honored and protected for exposing these things, are being sent to prison. Why? And he said, Judge Embody looked at me. Slowly, his voice shaking, he began to talk. I'm just a man. I'm not a god. I wish I were. I have no choice in what I have done. I'm just a man, not a god. I am doing what I must do with the evidence before me.
Well, that's always difficult when you go in front of Judge Pontius.
Yeah.
I mean, that is such a Pontius Pilate washing my hands of it situation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and he said that he appeared even more shaken than DeCamp, the judge. Like someone had...
Oh, so I'm sorry, Judge.
Oh, he must have
It's a rough
felt
day to
really
be a
bad.
judge.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And he's not wearing any pants under that robe.
No, it hasn't in years.
They're all nude. Every judge you see has got his nipples fucking hard on that stiff judge robe that they're wearing.
Yeah, of course.
And Alicia Owen spent almost all of her prison sentence in solitary confinement.
Yep,
getting
which is
driven
ludicrous.
nuts. Yeah.
Ludicrous.
On a perjury charge.
Yep.
That is absolutely insane.
And so,
perjury.
but then again,
Yeah.
but then we find where this whole story began is this idea that, but their evidence was enough in the civil case that Paul Benacki was awarded $1 million as a settlement, right?
Yeah. Paul, we'll get to that in a second.
Okay.
So Paul Benacki, who also testified with Alicia Owen, he received 5 years for perjury. And by the way, his claim held a hell of a lot more water because he had reported all of this shit to the police
When it was happening.
2 years.
Yeah.
2 entire years before the Franklin case started.
What's the race of Owen?
They're both white.
They're both
Yeah.
white, okay.
Yeah, they're both white. And so after Alicia Owen's trial in 1990, DeCamp found this other kid named Troy Boner. And he was...
Unfortunate
Oh, yeah,
name.
we can't make, but he's a victim, so we can't make fun of
maybe we just call him Bonner. How's
Yeah,
about that?
Bonner. I
call
think
him
he
Bonner.
pronounces it Bonner.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
think anybody goes by Boner.
And that'd be the worst name if you were like sexually assaulted and then
That
your
would
last
be
name
really
is
rough.
what
'cause
sexually
it's like,
assaulted you.
He was asking for it.
He wanted my boner. It's like, I can't stop
I
thinking about
gotta
that.
stop this. Yeah.
So he had more information, like he was willing to testify under oath.
He was fucked up.
Yeah, and he said that as he came into the courthouse, he was immediately ushered into a private room by county judicial authorities. Troy was in a room with the special attorney and other officials from the prosecutor's office. He came out of the room and he leaned over and he whispered to DeCamp. He said, "Oh God, forgive me. They guaranteed if I talk here today, they will put me away for 20 years. Told me I would be charged with perjury for my original testimony if I opened my mouth today in court. Look at what they did to Alicia. Look at what they did to my brother." And by the way, his brother was found dead playing quote unquote Russian roulette.
Yeah,
So
found his brother.
we're learning here, never go into a private room.
Never go into
always
a
avoid a private
room,
room.
and especially in a courthouse.
Oh yeah, just stay in public rooms.
Yeah, go with not even the bathroom.
No,
don't even
no.
go into a bathroom at a courthouse.
Go in a plant.
Yeah.
Go in the plant in the corner
Go
of the courtroom.
outside.
Yeah.
Wear a diaper.
Sure.
And then he told a crazy testimony in the Conspiracy of Silence documentary. His testimony is very vivid and very intense, kind of the same thing. He talked about the cattle prod treatment. He talked about they play a game where they would drop a cigarette between him and another kid's arm and to see which one would pull off of each other. And it's
but
like
we did that in high school.
yeah, I know you did, but you grew up in Texas.
Yeah, and you guys there wasn't an adult playing the game.
Yeah,
making
we
you
watched
play.
Terry Gilliam movies.
Different.
That's what we did.
I did too.
But no, he said the same thing. He would talk about how he would go at Larry King and just be like, "You're a sick fuck. Why do you do this, you sick fuck?" And he's just like, "Oh, you like this? You like this?" And then they'd beat him with an inch of his life and then drop him off in front of his house. But again, they were saying there were several times he was supposed to show up to all these witnesses things, and he just would blow it off because he had a very bad drug problem.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's sort of, going back to the Hollywood thing again, that Corey Feldman interview saying when he was 14, he was surrounded by these people forcing oral sex, or demanding oral sex. And Corey Haim, of course, they both got huge into drugs. And there was that very interesting interview. The two Coreys was that reality show. But they did have an interesting conversation where they both said, "You didn't defend me when we were getting molested at 14. You weren't there for me. You heard what was going on." And it was really telling. If you get a chance to watch that clip. So
it's just that you get into any exclusive group all the way since the beginning of fucking time. They've been fucking kids.
But drugs are the best escape from these mental.
Well,
I can't imagine having been stuck in a brain knowing with this history.
What was it? The BTK. What was the name of that documentary? With
I Survived BTK.
I Survived BTK. His whole life was fucking
and
shattered.
they're going to prison. What was it? What's his last name?
Otero.
Yeah.
So John DeCamp, here's why I love John DeCamp, is that after all of these setbacks, after all of this, the fucker never gave up.
Never gave up. He's still talking about it.
Still talking about it to this day. Anytime, I'm surprised people haven't started asking him about this whole Hollywood pedophile ring, because, when Sandusky came out, people started talking to him about it. And I found like a great article where, he was just pretty much, at this point in his career, he's just saying like, yeah, of course. Yeah. Well, you didn't read. Yeah. This is just the way it is.
Just look at it. Just look at it. He's like all day long. It's just like him. Just like all he does is scream like, "Look at the evidence!" all day.
Yep.
Yeah.
And DeCamp in 1999, he stood by Paul Benacchi this entire time. And admittedly, Benacchi, he was a fucked up guy.
They're all fucked up.
He got full disclosure, Benacchi got arrested for sexually abusing a 5-year-old. That's just in full disclosure. And he spent 5 years in prison for perjury as well.
Yeah.
But so these people, they're fucked up people.
That was the thing, is that all this does is it spread filth.
Yeah.
All this stuff does is spread that evil to everybody.
Yeah.
And it's certainly not an excuse, but that tends to be the case with a lot of pedophiles, sexual abuse in their history as well.
No,
Same thing with, drunkenness and spousal abuse.
Yeah.
Yeah. But DeCamp stood by him through that.
If you're lucky, then you sort of have like a Barry Sanders situation where your son also plays football and he's really good.
That's a cool
you could
one.
do that too.
Oh yeah, if you're Kirk Douglas, you got Michael Douglas.
Yeah.
And you're happy about it.
Yeah,
Kiefer
his
Sutherland,
son then died.
Yeah, that's right.
That was sad.
That was sad. Yeah, but you actually met Donald Sutherland, but we'll talk about that at the end.
So in 1999, Paul Benacchi and John DeCamp, they bring a civil trial against Larry King for $1 million. Paul Benacchi goes on the stand, and he gives a testimony that is so damning, so vivid, so real, and so believable that despite the fact that he'd been charged with perjury talking about the exact same thing 9 years earlier, a judge awarded him $1 million in a civil case.
So it held water somewhere. It's kind of like did the same thing with O.J. Simpson.
Yeah. And that's your judge, Dr. Evil. Hello, that's an Austin Powers reference. Heller. I'm telling you, this Heller thing is really
you've been
taking
saying this Heller thing often.
Yeah,
I love it.
Sure. I mean, it's your thing now.
Judge Dr. Evil. Heller.
That is... That's a bad joke.
Kind of fun to say, though.
Yeah, real good. Not all of them got off. Not all of them. Got kind of the happy ending that Benacchi did. Troy Bonner, in 2003,
when the book came out.
The book came out in '96.
Yeah, but but
it was the new edition. A new edition came out in 2003 with a lot of updates to it. So he walked into a hospital in New Mexico where all bad things happen. Mm-hmm. And this is the perfect setting for something to happen.
Oh, of course,
Mexico. Yeah. He came in screaming, "They're after me! They're after me!" because of this book, and he was holding the Franklin cover
waving it around. Yeah,
waving it around. They sedated him. They calmed him down. When the nurses went in to check on him in the next morning, he was just sitting in a chair with blood pouring out of his mouth.
And he's
not good.
He's just dead.
Yeah, just absolutely dead.
Boom. Got suicided.
Yeah. And as far as Larry King goes, I know all of you asking out there.
We've been looking for him.
We've been looking for him. And today, I found him.
You found him. Okay.
Sterling, Virginia.
It looks like, yes, apparently you found a Yelp review of his sales skills at a BMW dealership.
He has been working
of course, he's a car salesman. Of course.
As far back as at least up until 2011, he worked at a BMW car dealership in Sterling, Virginia. He had worked there 5-6 years. Long time.
I want to see the people there's like, well, now that this BMW, you could rape about 2-3 kids.
You
in the backseat.
Did I even say that out loud?
No.
I mean, fit them in there.
Yeah. Do you have children? That's what I was saying. insane.
Do you have children? You should bring them on by.
Yeah, but
Bring them on. To the
we'll
thing.
put them in the car together. I'll show you what I'm talking about. Not the rape thing. That was an accident.
So this is a man who brought in his Mini Cooper for maintenance. Of course, he was looking around maybe buying a BMW. He said, on one occasion, I had the unfortunate opportunity to have Mr. Larry King assist me. He was belittling and walked away from me mid-sentence. He is flippant and cavalier in his dealings with customers.
Oh, my.
Yes.
1-star review.
One star.
1 star. That is scathing.
And
I'll say this is what happens when
dealership overall is just 2 stars. It's a 2-star dealership.
A 2-star BMW dealership.
they hired Larry King.
Yeah, not a lot of background checks going on there.
And they, this guy this is what happens when it I'm sorry, man. You're an older man. You're not going to get this special Larry King treatment.
Yep.
You know, you're not going to get the red carpet treatment that you'd get if you were just a 7-year-old looking to buy a BMW. Because the best
can't
part
drive,
about
though.
that is that he's got his own money.
Yeah.
And that's so important in dating. You have to really, you can't always be pulling all the weight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is a good job for a pedophile to have, though. No one 18 and under going to buy a new car. So that's
Especially on a BMW.
No, yeah, that's
like
they're at the
maybe
Ford
a Fiat.
dealership. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and there's not a whole lot of families coming into BMW dealerships.
So this is the end of our saga.
And by the way, Sterling, Virginia, I mean, that's right there next to Washington, D.C.
Oh, yeah.
So he's still there right along with all of his buddies. He's
having a
still
great
within-
time.
Selling cars.
Yeah, still within...
So no one was punished.
No.
Nothing was fixed.
Nope.
All of the victims are trashed.
Yep.
Gary is dead.
Yep.
John DeCamp is a screaming lunatic somewhere in a Hotel 6.
Yeah.
Somewhere. So great.
Yeah, I guess that's it then. Yeah, nothing worked out
And
well.
I really do want to thank everyone for going on this journey
With us.
fun
We've all learned a lot. When I proposed the idea of doing Satanism in the government, did not realize the scope, but it's interesting what you discover. We've done this all the time with different types of research. The fucking rabbit hole goes 9 miles deep. It shows you that there's a lot more to reality than you think it is. There's a lot more to what goes on there's a lot more than what's just in the fucking newspapers, y'all. You have to research it. But I'm also glad it's over.
Yes, it's all done.
This has taken a month of my life away from me.
And it's all done, and we'll move
We're going to
on.
get back some awesome. We have some great shows coming up.
Oh, yes.
man,
Those
we've
We've got a
related
great
things.
big hitter coming up that's going to knock your fucking your fucking
You all
slippers
know 'em and
off.
love 'em.
It's going to be great. We got some ghosts coming. We got some aliens coming. We got a bunch of shit. I'm very
Bunch of fun
excited.
stuff.
I want to say goodbye to V. Kelly from Atlanta. I miss you.
Oh,
I
V.
miss
Kelly.
Casper Kelly. People who listen to the show in Atlanta. I miss Atlanta.
And you had and it's so nice to have you back.
It's so good to
It's
be
so
back.
great.
And you had a nice flight back. You got
I
to
sat next to Donald Sutherland.
Mr. Donald's, and how was that?
He is sick.
Yeah, he's sick.
He's not doing well.
What did he say about his son Kiefer?
He was just like my son. He brings home terrible women. And we
now we
talked
know that
about
about
45 minutes. We talked about God. We talked about he hit it on the flight attendant with me.
Yeah.
You know, that was fun.
That's great. And we want to say thank you as well to, what is it, Frank Mendoza.
Thank you so much for the candy, dude.
Candy, the T-shirt, some of the greatest stuff around, and it's very, very
We've got
nice.
some of the most beautiful fans in the world. I'm sorry we outraged you for missing a week, but we will do more.
And we're going to come out with apparel very, very soon. So, we can all dress terribly together.
Yes,
It'll be great.
yes, and we'll have lots of extra larges.
Oh, that'll be the smallest size you can get.
Oh, what am I going to do?
I'm sorry, Marcus.
You're gonna have to wrap it around you like it's a diaper.
That's right.
Okay.
All
So
right.
follow.
Ben Kissel on Twitter. I need to get 1,000. I need to get over 1,000.
It'll happen for
Okay,
you.
just-
It'll happen.
It's a good feeling, by the way.
I know. I want the feeling. I want the feeling.
so
Follow
much
me.
power.
Good Lord.
At Henry Loves You.
At Marcus Park.
All right. Well, hail Satan.
Hail Satan.
Heil Geen.
Hail me.
And hail yourselves,
Me
everyone.
gusta leche. And don't use peanut butter all over yourself.
Ah, that's good. Yeah, absolutely.